It is that dusty and hazy season of the year. According to NIMET prediction, the season comes with a lot of health challenges and incidences of fire outbreaks. This is a cause for concern to both government and the public. In line with that, Panorama today will zero in on the alarming rate of fire outbreaks and measures that must be taken to stem this rising tide. Assistant Controller of Fire and the National Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service, Paul Abraham, will be on the wings to take us through some safety tips. This is NTA Panorama. Thank you very much for joining us. I'm Ruth Aguele. Welcome. President Bola Tinubu and President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva of Brazil have met in Addis Ababa with discussions on comprehensive strengthening of bilateral ties in all fields. President Tinubu emphasized the strength of Nigeria's economic potential and influence, saying the country is witnessing a leap forward despite some short-term reform pains, as his administration is removing all encumbrances to business. The president further explained that his administration is investing in critical sectors of the economy like healthcare, education and agriculture to ensure the welfare of all Nigerian citizens and to create sustainable economic prosperity for future generations. He pointed out that Nigeria has a vibrant population of young Nigerians who are trainable, dependable and should be empowered. President Tinubu also revealed his administration's readiness to fight corruption and ready to invest in critical sectors like healthcare, agriculture, education, infrastructure, among others. Assessing Nigeria's natural and human resource wealth, President Lula da Silva said Africa's largest economy and South America's largest economy have a long and interesting history together. The Brazilian leader said Nigeria and Brazil once had a trade volume of more than $10 billion in the past, which has now plummeted to $1.6 billion, emphasizing that he is determined to strengthen bilateral relations. The Brazilian leader promised to restore the good relations with Nigeria. As he said, both countries need stronger relations in education, culture, development, agricultural and industrial development. A delegation of the Nigeria's president has met with the top management of Ethiopian Airlines to address various trade relations issues. The delegation, directed by President Bola Tinubu, was led by the Director General of the National Intelligence Agency, Ahmed Abubakar. The Ethiopian Airlines had raised a number of issues which could affect its operations and relations with Nigeria. After meeting in Addis Ababa, the senior special assistant to the president on foreign affairs and international relations, Shola Enikon Olaye, briefed State House correspondents. Ethiopian Airlines is one of the largest carriers flying into Nigeria. Meanwhile, let's inform you that President Bola Tinubu has departed Addis Ababa after attending the 37th summit of the African Union heads of states and government. In other news, the National Association of Road Transport Owners has embarked on a nationwide strike, threatening the distribution of petroleum products. The strike, which commenced this Monday, allegedly as a response to the federal government's inability to address the association's demands. The strike has the potential to disrupt the already fragile fuel supply chain, as most key players in the oil and gas sector are complaining of challenges in their operations due to the fall of Naira and access to Forex. This is causing inadequate supply and price hikes across the country. NATO members control a significant portion of the nation's petroleum distribution network, and their absence could cripple the sector. Now, the constant fire outbreak in Anambra State has left many in critical economic and health conditions. If not for the swift intervention of the fire service and the collaborative efforts of the market leadership, the situation would be more fatal. Dorothy Enwe visited marketplaces to ascertain their preparedness and measures to avert the disaster.
season particularly is always associated with fire disasters. Anambra State has recorded huge loss of property and sometimes lives to fire disasters, both in public and private places. The Anambra State Fire Service Chief, Martins Agbele, and his men were caught on camera combating fire outbreak at a residential building.
All you need to do is what? To inform us in time. Time of distress call will always determine the time of response.
People are advised to be more proactive in applying every safety measure against fire outbreak, even as they are told to be on the guard and watch out on their neighbors. In Onitsha, Dora Enwe, NTA News.
All right, and to pick up with that issue, to further expand the discourse, we have the Assistant Controller of Fire and the National Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service, Paul Abraham. Thank you very much for joining us, Mr. Abraham.
It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, I'm sure you just watched that report with me and you saw it's not just for Anambra, of course, you know, across the country. This is the season where we get to hear a lot of fire outbreaks, but beyond this season, tell us, what are your concerns, particularly speaking from the fire service perspective?
Well, like you rightly noted, the season, Harmattan season, you experience a lot of dryness, fluctuation in weather. Sometimes it's cold, sometimes it gets hot, especially during the day, and NIMET is also warning Nigerians. Notably, we're in a global village, so we're faced with global warming and all of that. And that is one of the reasons that I believe that the Federal Fire Service in particular has taken up the responsibility of continuous sensitization and awareness campaign. The Controller General, Engineer Jaji Abdugganiu, when he came to office, has emphasized continuously that fire prevention is cheaper, is safer, is easier than firefighting.
Indeed, they say prevention is always better than cure. So tell us, from the fire service perspective, there have been a lot of challenges, and one of it is the delay to response. I know the fire service, from what you're telling us, they're putting in a lot of efforts, but why do we have that, delay to response when there's a fire outbreak?
Well, just like my friend Agility spoke from Anambra, is a global concern. Response time is always tied to the call, the fire call. The fire call, simply put, when you alert the fire service that there is fire. Okay, so a lot of times it's tied to it. And so it is when we're informed that there is fire in a particular place that we turn out. So sometimes we don't get the call as at when due, and then at other times it's infrastructural gap. We don't have all it takes to be everywhere, every time, and on time. So if fire happens where we don't have an outpost or a fire station in the nearest area, it will take us to travel, some length of time, and that can affect response time. So those are the two major reasons why there may be delayed response.
And part of the concerns we've had also is part of the infrastructural deficit is also water, lack of water. Even when you get there, the water is definitely not enough. Are you collaborating, building a synergy with, those concerned, to build a stronger capacity?
Well, thank you, Ruth. The issue of lack of water is a lot of times is because people have not been able to differentiate between the Federal Fire Service and the state fire services. Firstly, I must let Nigerians know that the fire service in Nigeria is under the concurrent lease of the Constitution. So you have the Federal Fire Service, you have the state fire services, you have the local government fire services, and you also have the private fire service. So in instances where there's a turnout, everybody put the blame on the fire service, and sometimes it's completely misconstrued. When it gets to water and extinguishing elements, the Federal Fire Service do not have that shortfall. We don't go to fire scenes without, as a matter of fact, it's outside our SOP, except you want to be sacked to take an appliance to a fire scene without adequate water. And to meet that gap, we have what we call the water tenders. So when we turn out a fire station and the machine is there, there's a water tender in support. As to collaboration, yes, we're also in collaboration with other state fire services or the water management authorities, depending on where this incident happens, so that we can tap into that hydrant facility where the case arises.
Of course, I know there's the Fire Week, which tends to raise awareness to the populace. Tell us about that, because awareness is very important, especially to marketplaces, even safety tips for people at home.
Yes, like I said earlier, the Controller General believes, and that's the truth, that fire prevention is cheaper, is easier, and is safer than firefighting, because firefighting is gobs a lot of resources. So, and to do this prevention, we have a customary week, which we normally start first week in October. This is the build-up to the Harmattan season. It's Fire Safety Week, and it's after the flag-off happens here in Abuja, we take it across the country. Every state command, every zonal command is mandated, to go out there and begin to sensitize the people, from marketplaces to religious, to schools, Catch Them Young program, We do all of that so that people become more and more aware of what they need to do where fire happens, or what they need to do so they can even prevent fire, as the case may be. So it's a campaign that we normally start from the first week in October, and it stays up till the rainy season.
So you want to share some of those tips for the benefit of those who then get a grasp of part of the campaign you carried out last year in October?
Okay, well, not the campaign that we carried out in October. It's still ongoing. It continues up until.
Okay, so you want to share those safety tips?
Yes, I would like to share some of them.
Very briefly.
Well, very importantly is that at the National Data Repository Center, we have it on record that 80% of the fire outbreak in Nigeria are caused by electric fire. And so what that means is that we always encourage people, when you're not in the house or when appliances are not in use, please put them out, as much as possible. We also encourage people to do good housekeeping. You find situations where the diesel tank and the generator or the electric switches are very close to themselves. This is fire waiting to happen. So we encourage people to make sure that they get certified and licensed engineers, electrical engineers, when they want to install these things. We also encourage people to be wary of substandard electric wires, because ignition is likely to happen when you're putting excess load on the wire that don't have capacity to carry, that level of current. That being said, we also encourage people to equip their house with first aid firefighting system. We're talking about the extinguishers, we're talking about the smoke detectors, the alarm system, dredgers, sprinklers, fire blankets in the kitchen, and all of that. Again, so that the young ones, we also discourage them from attending to the kitchen or cooking unattended. Young people should not be left in the kitchen, especially during the holidays, without anybody supervising them, and all of that. Your gas cylinders should be kept under some kind of cool atmosphere, so that the heat does not, ignite it.
Okay, I actually wanted to ask about the fire extinguisher, but let's hear your final word, because a lot of people just have that in their homes, in their cars, and don't really know how to operate that. Is there some kind of manual tip, you want to share while you add that to your final thoughts for us?
Well, simply put, the fire extinguisher, one of the first aid firefighting equipment, is one of the things that you could, assess, as a on-ground responder where there is a fire. And if you will always remember the word pass, passing an exam, P-A-S-S, pass an exam. Those are the acronyms that you can use to operate your extinguisher. So it starts with, if you have your extinguisher right in front of you, you need to pull out the pin. That's the P. Okay, you need to aim at the base of fire. Sometimes people just put their extinguisher and then they begin to just flare it into the air, trying to kill the flames. The flame is an outshoot of an event. It's coming from the seat of fire. That's what we call it professionally. So you need to aim, okay, that's the A. And then you need to squeeze the nozzle at the top of the extinguisher, the part where you can hold, the handle, we call that the nozzle. So you need to squeeze the nozzle, and then you need to sweep. So the squeeze and then you need to sweep from left to right or right to left.
Okay.
Once you do that, you have been able to, you should be able to put out fire that is at the incipient stage. But I must say that where you don't have the guts, you don't have the capacity or the resource available, then please call out, get out of the building, get out of the fire scene, and call the fire service as quickly as possible.
You have an emergency number?
Yes, we have a national emergency number here in Abuja, and we are able to turn out fire stations from across the country. That's actually like our national control room number, and it's a digital number that can be easily written down if you have your biro with you. 080-3200-3557. I'll take it again. 080-3200-3557.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paul Abraham. He's the Assistant Controller of the Fire, and the National Public Relations Officer of the Federal Fire Service. Thank you for that enlightenment, and you actually just taught me how to use the extinguisher too.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you very much for that tips. All right, let's take a break while we ponder on all of that. We'll be right back.
The counsel of our fathers.
I will urge and advise our younger generation to use talent and brain to sort out problems, not arms.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation.
My advice to these young people is please do not take us back to those harrowing days. You probably do not know what it is.
I believe we have fought one civil war too many in this country. So those who experience it will run away from it.
Nigerian youths, let's build our nation together.
Welcome back. Enhanced synergy and sharing of intelligence among the security agencies is critical in the ongoing drive to further secure the nation. The former Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Tukur Yusuf Buratai, reiterates this at the 2024 Army West Africa Social Activities, that is WASA, in Abuja. Defense correspondent Ismail Musa reports.
It's the West African Social Activity WASA, an age-long tradition in the Nigerian Army, aimed at bringing together personnel and their families to strengthen the existing bonds among different ethnic groups and the military. The event, devoid of much regimentation, is also an avenue to acknowledge and reward hard work and promote unity among officers, soldiers, and the barracks community.
WASA serves as a veritable tool to signify that the sun has set on the activities of the year being celebrated, while encouraging the troops to approach the activities lined up for the new year with renewed zeal, vigor, and commitment.
Some may criticize organizing WASA as unnecessary in the face of prevailing security challenges bedeviling our nation. WASA, one way or the other, makes all these cultural integrations possible and foster harmonious living in our units and formations.
As the Nigerian Army strives to tackle insecurity in the country, both the kinetic and the non-kinetic, we must use culture and tradition to promote national security and national unity.
The social event marks the end of a successful training year and the beginning of another. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
Ebonyi State Governor Francis Iwifuru says the Southeast will fully key into the lawful activities of the Nigerian Hunters and Forest Security Service as enabler to ending serial killings in most forest reserves within and out of the region. The governor was speaking when he received the State Commandant, Igwe Larry and other top officials of the service and granted approval for the recruitment of 2,600 youths in the state. Commandant General Wole Joshua Osati-Mehin and the Deputy John Mechie promised to ensure adequate security around Nigerian forest resources and appealed for speedy assent to the law by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. One of the core agenda of the present administration is youth empowerment and skills development. Minister of State for Youth Development, Ayodele Olawande, said this when he played host to state commissioners of youth and sports development from across the country under the auspices of the Commissioners of Youth Forum in Nigeria. Olayinka Ojo will tell us more.
Globally, available white-collar jobs cannot cater for the teeming youth population, and Nigeria is no exception. This is why acquiring a skill is the way to go, because it is the new oil. And to achieve this, especially at the grassroots, government is seeking partnership with commissioners for youth ministries across the country. Predicated on the pillars of engagement, collaborations, partnerships, establishment of greenhouse, and a youth academy, the minister urged the commissioners to cooperate and ensure seamless implementation of youth programs and policies at the state and local government levels. He said, this will guarantee effective replication of federal government's initiatives for youths.
We have been working on modalities, talking with a lot of partners, and that is why we said unemployment is about when we don't have the skills. That's why we said we are coming up with NTA. We have youth in sports, youth in entertainment.
The federal government is putting in place measures that will ensure more than 7 million Nigerians acquire one marketable skill or two.
I want to assure you that we, the commissioners from the different states, we are ready to support you 100%. If it means at the last time, that means 101%. We support you and collaborate together.
Through this partnership, it is expected that Nigeria would produce more young entrepreneurs by the next few years. Olayinka Ojo, NTA News.
The globe stands the risk of having 14% annual growth in the number of child marriages by 2030, going by UNICEF and UNFPA projections, an alarming figure that has necessitated Nigeria to intensify efforts to address the child marriage burden through a national dialogue in Abuja. Chimdima in the BC reports that the Ministry of Women Affairs, in conjunction with the development partners and the traditional institution, are driving conversations on the subject matter.
Nigeria is ranked third country in the world with high number of child marriages, according to the Ministry of Women Affairs and UNICEF's study. How does a child raise a child is one of the rhetorics that reverberated as state actors gathered to discuss measures for tackling the ills. The Minister of Women Affairs says words will be matched with actions this time around.
Our royal fathers should tell their people, look at the way it is now. If you do it, this is it, because it's part of violence against women. And there is a law to that effect, of which most states have signed.
The annual cost of $10 billion is the economic burden of child marriage to the nation.
Some traditional and religious practices are said to encourage this harmful act that has health consequences, especially vesico-vaginal fistula in the girl child. So, traditional rulers, the likes of King Apollos Chu, the One-Inche bridge builder, passionate in advocacy for the right practices that foster national development, say royal fathers should rise to their responsibility in driving sensitization on ending child marriage in the grassroots.
Child marriage is happening in the community, so we fought for the community, thank Raya, assemble the member of the community, make sure that everybody will throw this enlightenment, this advice, this education they're giving to us, to them that the government is firm at it.
The consensus is that concerted efforts will reduce such practice by 2030. In Abuja, Chimdima Ndubisi, NTA News.
Cancer is considered a global health threat. World Health Organization report shows more than 70,000 deaths recorded annually in Nigeria. To mitigate this scourge, the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association is taking strides in carrying out sensitization and free screening for 200 of its members, with focus on cervical and breast cancer. Ismail Musa reports.
Data by the National Institute for Cancer Research and Treatment show that Nigeria records more than 120,000 new cases of cancer every year. In 2020, 78,000 Nigerians died as a result of cancer-related complications.
Please get screening. Go for your test.
This cancer awareness, organized by the Defense and Police Officers' Wives Association, DPOA, is to collectively raise awareness to promote early prevention, treatment, and advocate healthy lifestyle to reduce the burden on families and government.
Each one of us has a role to play in shaping a world where cancer is no longer a death sentence, but a disease that can be prevented, detected, and treated effectively. Together, let us close the care gap and pave the way towards a future free from the burden of cancer.
By creating this awareness and sensitization in terms of a screening, of course, invariably will lead to early detection and, of course, prompt treatment.
We looking at options that will ensure that we can actually eliminate and eradicate cancer. And the best way to do that is through science, through early detection, and treatment as early as possible.
With the 2024 Cancer Awareness Month tagged Closing the Care Gap, DPOA also aims to advocate availability of cancer treatment services across the nation. In Abuja, Ismail Musa, NTA News.
And that concludes Panorama. Thank you for your time. Do have a good day ahead. I'm Ruth Aguele. Bye.